Welcome to another episode of the Zambezi Belle Podcast. Today we have a wonderful, wonderful guest. And before I introduce her and we get started, we are going to start with a word of prayer. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to get together as sisters and just talk. Please help us as we'll be having this conversation for every single person who is going to be hearing this conversation to be touched in some way and to come out of this conversation changed. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your care. Thank you for the gift of life. Help us in everything that we do to bring glory to you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So today we have Mrs. Yeve Chitiga, and she is a dynamic public speaker and is the CEO of Yeve Coaching and Consulting, an executive coaching and leadership development practice. She began her professional career in banking as an internal auditor, working for international institutions in the United States and in the United Kingdom. As an attorney, Yeve rose through the ranks to counsel at Wilmer Hale before pivoting to a late-stage financial technology startup where she held the position of director, assistant general counsel. Yeve brings a rare blend of legal experience, coaching expertise, and human insight to her work with attorneys. Having spent 15 years navigating corporate and legal environments, she understands the high standards, competing demands, and identify shifts that come with advancing in the legal profession. Yeve is an experienced speaker with a gift for captivating audiences. Through her mix of wit and warmth, she delivers thought-provoking speeches that resonate with diverse audiences. Her gift for storytelling extends into literature as a published children's book author. Yeve is a skilled panel moderator and workshop facilitator whose expertise creates engaging and memorable conversations that leave a lasting impression. With authenticity and relatable content, Yeve believes in the power of using her voice on social media. Most recently, Yeve was featured in Forbes as a Black woman redefining entrepreneurship. Clients describe her as deeply intuitive, thoughtful, and disarming, someone who helps attorneys quiet the noise, uncover what truly matters, and move forward with clarity and confidence. As a working parent herself, Yeve also understands how life and leadership intersect and supports clients in honoring both their ambition and well-being. Her work is not one size fits all, it's human, grounded, and results driven, tailored to help your attorneys lead effectively and grow in every stage of their career. Welcome, Yeve. Welcome again to the podcast.
Thank you
Oh,
so
there we
much
go.
for having me, Praise. It's an honor to be here. Thank you. I appreciate you.
I am so excited to have you here. We had you on the podcast during the pandemic, and it was so fun. And I am so grateful that you agreed to come back because you were requested by a few certain peoples that wanted Yeve back. I know the last time we asked you to read a story, to actually say a story, and people really loved that. So thank you.
Aw, thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me back. And I'm excited to be back in this new format. I love the growth that it represents too and the journey that you've been on. So I'm honored to just be part of that, even in this small way. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, let's get started by you just introducing yourself and telling us who you are, how you came from Zimbabwe to now the States, your journey.
Oh, so I'm Yeve, and first and foremost, I am, uh, a woman of faith, and that is, my identity is rooted in that. It's been a journey to be able to actually embrace and say that, right? Because you grow up wanting what traditional success looks like, and you grow up envisioning a future in which you are climbing the corporate ladder and all of these things, and then you find yourself wondering and questioning, well, actually, who am I really and truly, right? What does it look like if all of those things are stripped away? Who am I? So I will say that's like the arc, the overarching arc. um, and I emigrated to the U.S. In my teen years, and have now lived outside of Zimbabwe for more than half of my life. So I spent most of my time in the diaspora now, which is quite shocking, because I never would have, I didn't know that that was what was going to happen. But that's the journey, and that's my story. And so I have a lot of experiences that are rooted in that, being an immigrant, but also being like a third culture kid, right? Like sometimes not quite feeling like I belong fully in one or fully in the other because of this, of that dynamic of having come at this particular age, at this, like, middle of my teens to this country. And I went to college here. I started working here. I went to college in South Carolina, started working in North Carolina, went to the UK after I started working, and then came back to the US and have been back since. And I always wanted to be an attorney. That's what I grew up saying I wanted to do. However, I also always have been a creative, and part of the question I asked when I was younger was, can I be either someone who performs, like an actress or some kind of performing art, or an attorney? And those are the two things that I kind of, was positioning in terms of like what I wanted to do. And I was convinced that I could do both if I chose the legal path, because I could be in the courtroom and, I could act, if you will, in that setting. And of course, when I became an attorney, I never went to court. It's not the type of law that I practiced at all. But I always yearned for an outlet for my creativity. And so that was also a simultaneous kind of path throughout my life where I would always have a creative outlet, and I would always do that. And I think where I find myself today is at a place where I am embracing fully the creative talents that I have, and allowing both the creative and like the left and the right brain to kind of merge and do what they do, as opposed to, focusing on more on one and the other. And when we first met, I had written my children's book, and I think that was really the first intentional expression of me kind of saying, hey, I really want to do this creative stuff, and I am both a creative and I'm an analytical thinker. And so that kind of, if you will, set me on this path in some regard.
So, yeah, it's very interesting because, as a doctor, I find that medicine is a very jealous mistress. And so it's like you see physicians tend to do that one thing that they are very good at, which is being a doctor. And first of all, because our careers are so busy, you don't really get time to be creative and to work on those other creative endeavors, which I think is actually a disadvantage, because when you're fulfilled in your creative capacity, you're actually a better doctor, is what I think. So I can totally understand that, because, you go through your career thinking, or at least getting to your career thinking that you are a monolith, that you're going towards the one thing and you're going to be good at that one thing. And then you realize that we are so multifaceted that we can be good at many other different things, and the things that bring us so much joy.
You are literally using words that I say all the time, and words that I said like just a couple days ago. Literally, I said, you are not a monolith, right? As a human, and your
Wow.
career doesn't have to take a monolithic path. And I always say that we are multifaceted and multidimensional and multi-talented. That's how we come into the world. If you look at young children, that's how they are. I
Yeah.
mean, you have kids too. They're interested in so many things. And then as
Yes.
we grow, it's like, it's
Yes.
refined, if you will, and specialized and becomes, oh, you're good at this one thing. And it's like,
Yes.
no, I am multifaceted and multi-talented.
Yes.
And, at our core as humans, I believe that we are creative at heart because we have a creator, right? Who created us. And so, like, innately in us is this gift to create and make something. And that expression looks very different for very, it's again, it's multidimensional. It means a lot of things to be creative. It's not just art, right? It could mean a lot of different things. So, yeah, it's so interesting that you say that.
So let's go back. You are a lawyer that now helps other lawyers find joy in their work. And you were in the corporate world, climbing that corporate ladder, doing all the things that we imagine that Yeve is doing, becoming this big shot lawyer. And then can you just take us through what happened and how did you pivot?
Yeah, I think the story, really is there wasn't a specific moment, one moment. It's a
Mm-hmm.
series of moments. And
Mm-hmm.
the reason I took you back in terms of my intro and in with respect to what I was interested in is because those things were clues for me along the way and that helped me get to this point. And as we know, the saying that life is lived forward but understood backwards. When you look back, that's when you can see the patterns and the signals and the clues and oh, that's what that moment was for. That's what God was leading me to do, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, I can recall very early on in my career because I had a career before legal career. I was in banking. Very early on, I had this very like, wow, I just can't believe that this is what I'm doing. I feel like I'm supposed to be doing more, something more impactful, more fulfilling. And I couldn't understand what it was. And I was very, very like upset and sad. I had this on paper really great career. And at one point I was in the UK, you know, really doing great work and is often like the youngest and the only in these rooms with like really successful and seasoned people and by any measure that was success, but I still was very unfulfilled, and what I didn't understand then, and what I have come to understand is I didn't need then to have this platform like name any big philanthropist that has made a mark in the world or Mother Teresa. I didn't need to be like Mother Teresa and
Yeah.
find what I how can I show up like that. I didn't need that or any other figure, right, that we know to have been very charitable, etc. Didn't need to do that. I just needed to operate within my sphere of influence. And so when I wrote my book, for example, that was in part an answer to that. There has to be more. How can I serve? How can I give out something? How can I have this like positive impact, right? And what that taught me was once you do that, like God does the rest, and that book that I thought I was writing for this very small group of people, which is Zimbabweans in the diaspora, showed me
Yeah.
actually this book was for all kids, right? And all types of people all over the world. And just by taking that step, I was able to have impact broader than I realized or even was seeking or was thinking about. And I also remember other moments where I remember now on the legal side where I was like, okay, I know this isn't it. This isn't all, like after I had my daughter and I was grappling with what direction did I want to take my career. I think when I got exposed to coaching, formal coaching like 7 years ago, that's when I started to really think, okay, this is interesting. And then I didn't really get like very, very clear on that until like a couple years after. But it was through my own exposure. And, when I look back at the running theme throughout the things that I've done, even though they might seem disconnected, there's some
Mhm.
themes that emerge as a coach, as a lawyer, as an internal auditor, which is what I did in banking. You
Mhm.
are listening to your client and formulating a story, helping them to formulate a story, but you have to be a good listener,
Mm.
right? And you have to be able to distill information and like say, okay, this is the thing. And often my clients come to sessions as a coach, they come and they have 15 minutes of things that they want to say. And I am able to say, okay, out of all those things, here's what I hear you saying,
Wow.
and distilling it. I've done that in many ways throughout my life through the professions that I've had. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one theme, right? Or one skill set, right? That transcends whether I'm a coach or a lawyer, I've had to do that. And then I would say empowering people to see themselves for who they are, right? And to celebrate that. That's something that I've had to do. When I wrote my book, a huge reason I did that is so that kids could see themselves in the book, right? Black and brown kids could see themselves in the book and to celebrate that. That's literally what I do now. The work I do with clients now is to help them
Mm-hmm.
see themselves and to celebrate, themselves and to teach them various things, right? About themselves that they may not have seen or are able to see. So there's lots of themes and lots of like commonalities in various things, and so that's why I say it's not a single moment but rather a series of things, right? It's been a work, it's been a
Yes.
journey. And then lastly, my own experience in corporate America, my own experience as a Black woman attorney, right? Those experiences also shaped like what I know my clients need, right? And what they come to me for. So all of those things have worked together, to get me to this point and to allow me to do this work that I love so dearly. So, yeah.
So, how did you then pivot and take that big chance on yourself? Because there is, you know, getting up and going to work knowing that you're getting a paycheck every every month or every 2 weeks or whatever. And then there is the, okay, I'm going to take a chance on myself and I'm going full on entrepreneur.
So I come from a family of people who have always had side hustles. They've always been entrepreneurs on the side. So that's one. I saw that model,
Yes.
right? Um, I dabbled with that model when I was writing the book. At another point in life, my husband and I started like a very small, very small, like you know. Vegetable thing in Zim that was quite successful for the short time we were doing it. So I had these bouts of like entrepreneurship, and again I'm a creative, and so I always have ideas. At one point I wanted to do a T-shirt business, like so many different things. But I think to come to this moment, two things needed to happen.
Hmm.
One, I needed to see um, that when you bet on yourself, so many things that you don't even anticipate can happen. Why? Because if you're operating and working in alignment and co-creating with God, right? Like
Yes.
he's able to do what you can't even fathom. I saw that with my book. I saw that through other people as well,
Yes.
right? Who were doing that. And then I think the second thing is I had to be uncomfortable, and
Hmm.
so uncomfortable with what I was doing that I was quite open to
Yeah.
exploring this thing. And I had been actually taking steps in 2020 during the pandemic, but really more in 2023 to really like build this business up on the side,
Wow.
right? And I couldn't explain to you why. I couldn't tell you why at that moment that's what I was doing. Why was I putting so much energy into that? I couldn't quite explain it. I just knew that I needed to do that. And then I was gifted with a layoff from my last role. And I say
I love
gifted
that.
because,
Gifted.
yeah, it didn't feel like it at the time. And it's not something that I want people to go through, because it's a difficult thing, but I'm gifted with that. And that allowed me to really pause and reflect and think about what I wanted for my life and my career. And the answer was this. It was so clearly not more of the same of what I had been doing.
Yeah.
It was so clear that it was not more of the same. And you know various signals and signs and things on my heart and my spirit affirmed that this is what I wanted to do. And so took the leap and said, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it full time. And and I'm so glad that I did that. I'm so glad that I trusted that inner voice to do that, because now all the things that I, even 7 years ago, when I
Mhm.
started working with a coach, said that I wanted to do,
Yeah.
I'm doing those things now.
Wow.
And I don't know that I
So
would be if that hadn't happened, right? So,
so I heard two things from that. So one was God sets us up for our next act. So all these things that you were doing along the way were setting you up for this moment. And the second thing I heard was that sometimes God makes us uncomfortable to get to that place where he wants us to be, that next level. Because if it wasn't the gift of that being laid off, it's like you'd have been pretty comfortable in the place that you were, that it's like it might have taken even longer for you to get to the place that you are now. And how did you end up on the cover, like in Forbes?
I'm going to consider that a prophetic word, the cover.
The cover of Forbes, okay.
I was not on the cover. I was,
Okay,
you know,
okay. So you were
featured.
not on the cover, but you were in Forbes magazine.
Yeah, that was a result of me raising my hand to say, yeah, I would like, to share my story. Not really thinking that I would be selected because, I mean, Forbes can pick anybody. And I was chosen to do that. Very grateful for that. And that was through what was happening in the physical realm, right? Which is like, oh, okay, hey, we need some contributors for, this thing that Forbes wants to feature Black women, etc. Do you want to raise your hand? And I did. So that. But the timing of it for me is there's something meaningful and more to it, because that feature came a year, almost a year exactly from when I was let go.
Wow.
Almost a year exactly. And I wrote about it because I was just like blown away, right? Like a year ago, my story was very different. And, Forbes is Forbes, right?
Yeah,
And so how does that happen, right? How do I go from that to that?
yeah,
Especially because people's measure of success, right? Like if you're let go, well, it's like, oh, we want to help you, and like, wow,
yeah.
what a terrible thing. And that's true, right? But like this, on the other end of it, who could have predicted? I certainly couldn't have predicted
No.
that. And so there's the how, right? Like the practical how, but then there's like how. How is that possible? So, God works in mysterious ways, and is like you said, setting us up for the next thing always, right? So, yeah.
So how is it that you balance it? Oh, I know balance is not the word, but that's the word I use because because you're a mom, you're a wife, and you are running this business that, I imagine you have to pull yourself back from working late hours, from working weekends, because this is your thing and you're constantly working. So how are you doing it?
Yeah, I certainly don't use the word balance because I don't think balance exists. I do believe in harmony and integration and, work life integration, work life harmony. And for me, I think this is the first time in my entire career where I have felt such peace around the integration and harmony around the work and the life. It just feels so right. I feel like I am able to be very present with my family, especially with my child. And I'm only able to do that because it is my business and I do get
Yeah.
to set, the times and the parameters, right? And so that freedom is really what I have been seeking for a long time, to be able to flex and turn it on and off and say, listen, now is family time, right?
Yes.
And then now I'm working, quote unquote, right? Like I'm in my office, I'm doing my thing, even as I'm talking to you, right? So being able to flex that and pivot as needed and recalibrate depending on what's going on in my life, with life
Yeah.
being the center, because these years of parenting, my daughter is so young, like these are really
Mhm.
hard but also really pivotal parenting years, right? And so I want to be present, I want to be there, right? And I let life lead. My life leads what how I show up at work. So if I need to turn it all off and cancel whatever because something's going on with home, I do that.
Yeah.
Whereas before I couldn't quite do that.
Right.
And then I also think, to be honest, I still struggle with some of the bad work habits that I had, unable to turn off quite completely.
Yeah.
I'm still in a service profession, in service of my clients, and I've always been in a service industry, right? Lawyer, internal auditor, your clients come first, all of that stuff. So there's some bad habits that I have developed over the years that I'm still trying to unlearn. And quite frankly, the biggest lesson that I am walking through right now is learning how to rest.
Mm. Oh, guilty.
That one, oof, that one is hard. That one
That
is
one is
hard.
hard.
So I'm still learning how to do that, and this is the season in which I'm really seeing more growth than I have in a long time. And then I will say support and community. My husband
Yeah.
is awesome and he's fantastic, and he is so helpful to me in all of these dimensions as a
Yeah.
partner, raising our child, right? And then also to the extent that I need support with work, because I travel, right? In my job now, I travel, I go and speak, and and that means who's at home, right? He's at home with our
Yeah.
daughter and stuff. So I think support. And then another area of growth has been boundaries even with my schedule, right? To say, like this year I implemented no meeting Fridays. I don't meet on
Oh, look at
Fridays.
you.
I leave, and I can do that, right? I'm blessed to be able to do that because it's my business, right? And I
Yeah.
get to decide, Fridays I'm going to reserve for, maybe I want to go to lunch. Maybe I want to do this. Maybe I don't want to do anything, right? Whatever that is. And so, really learning what's working for me and unlearning a lot of things that I had from the before years. that's
Yes.
that's what seems to be working for me. It doesn't mean I've got it all figured out, but it does mean that I am making some strides to really curate the life that I want,
Yes.
using this business as a vehicle, right, for the impact that I want to have, but also to allow me to show up in the way that I want as a professional, as a coach, right? So yeah.
I love that because my daughter is always calling me out on the rest part. It's like, Mom, if you're
Mm,
not in the hospital, you're so busy doing other things with your life. Like, can't you just rest? And
no.
honestly, I am working on it a little bit, but I'm not quite there where I can really fully start working on it. I'm just one of those busybodies. I always have to be doing something. But I enjoy it. I really do. And my kids are older, so
Yeah.
it's like when you're an empty nester, you have more time to do
Yeah.
all the other
Yeah.
things that you want to do. So, I mean, that season
Right.
in my life where I'm like, it's actually not really a bad thing, but she's always like, Mom, you need to rest. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear that because I think there's people who are just wired that way, and I think I am that way too. However, I know because I have gone through like burnout, right, that I need the
yeah.
rest. Also, I want to say I was talking about this with someone just today, that if we think about like growing up, me, for example, I didn't really grow up with people who actively rested. I don't
No.
remember that. Like it was go, go, go. People were busy and they
Yeah.
were doing things and there was activity and they were, there was a lot of productivity happening,
Yes.
And
Yes.
so this idea of rest it's not even just about me. It's actually about like culturally, what did I grow up seeing,
Yeah.
you know? I don't
Yeah.
really recall like moments where, I mean, we went on vacation, but I don't recall moments where my mom was just like, let me
I'm
just
just resting.
lounge and just rest. I just don't recall that, and she's like, go, go, go. My grandma was probably like that as well,
Yep.
and she was like youthful and active. And so it's also that, right? It's like,
Yeah. And that's the thing, because for me, since I'm Adventist, I do rest on Sabbath unless I'm on
mm,
call or whatever. So I'm like, I rested. Like I had a whole 24 hours of rest. So like that's the whole point. 6 days I work, 1 day I rest. There we go.
yeah,
So
yeah,
let's talk
yeah.
a little bit about your faith, because you touched a little bit on it. How has your faith changed? And do you think that change may have happened even more after you had your child? Or like walk us a little bit through that faith journey?
I love this question. And I
Yeah.
know that, this is a podcast where you talk about faith a lot. And so, yeah, I have been showing you glimpses of like various ways in which my faith shows up and has shown up in my journey. I grew up in church, going to church. That was never a thing. And I actually grew up going to I started my education going to a Jewish school, even though we weren't
Mm,
Jewish, but I went because it was one of the best schools. And so that I think was a very interesting message for
yeah.
me, to get like, oh, okay, you can go to the school and you can still keep your faith, but you're going. This is a great school. And the exposure that gave me was incredible. So
Yeah.
incredible. I'm so, so glad I had that exposure. Um, and yeah, I went to an Anglican high school in Zimbabwe for 4 years. And so this
You
idea
know, people are
of,
gonna want to know what school that was.
I'm just going to say an Anglican high school. Um, and we went to chapel, right? As
Mm,
part of school, we did that. And so that was like another, faith was baked into that.
yeah.
Um, and then when I emigrated, when I was after high school, I went to a school that was a Methodist college.
Mm,
So again, faith is baked in, and we had, you know, we would pray before things and things like that as a
yeah.
school, right? Like that was a
Yeah.
thing. So again, another faith-based institution.
Mm,
Um, and so I from a like systemic perspective, like faith has always been in my life,
yeah.
always, right? Personally, I think I started to really make make sense of it all probably starting in high school, because in high school now, I went to a boarding school where like I'm having to think through things on my own and all of that. And so I probably started really actively my own walk like that around high school. Um, and I think college for sure, because I was here by myself in the sense that, like,
Yeah.
my mom wasn't here. It was like a huge move. Um, and I think then that's when I really started to, like, I remember going through a very, like, a faith awakening, if you will, and I can recognize it now again in hindsight. Like my spirit was very attuned to certain things, and I just wanted, like, I was on the gospel choir. I was like, I
Mm,
wanted more, and I was really starting to understand it. And then I think at some point in college, like, I still had that, but I wasn't as intense as it relates to that. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a regular college student now. And then I worked after that, and I think faith still remained a part. Like I don't ever remember a time when I
like
wasn't
it's
going to
there.
church.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never have a moment looking back where I'm not like actively going to church. That was not a
Yeah.
thing. So that was always there. I will say the first time that my faith, like the active verb of faith, where I had to exercise faith, is that moment where I told you early on I had this, what am I doing with life? There has to be more.
Mm.
I think that was my spirit just like saying, you were
Yeah.
created for more. It's not just to like do this job in banking and whatever, right? And so
Yeah.
that is a time, and I think where I went through, a lot of that. But more recently, just fast forwarding, you asked like whether having my child was a moment where like my faith grew. Absolutely, absolutely, because I also dealt with a lot of anxiety when I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And it was anxiety around so much uncertainty about what could happen and what was happening, right, in
Yeah.
my pregnancy. Like, is the baby okay? Like, only getting to know when you go to the doctor, and then, when they're testing for the heartbeat, you're like, oh, okay, there's a heartbeat. But otherwise, you
Yes.
don't really know what's happening. Like, all of that was anxiety producing for me. It was just like too much. And I have so many stories throughout my life of how I activated like my faith, and God showed up in like really ridiculously like big crazy ways, or how God
Wow.
spoke to me in like really big ways, right? So many examples. Most recently, I will say that this season of life, I have grown and elevated to a different level of faith, um, because it's in the desert, it's in the valley where you are stripped and you have to rely on God. You can choose
Yes.
not to, right? But you have to rely on God. And I was really going through a season, and I'm still coming out of it, right? But going
Yeah.
through a season last year in particular where it was new. You can't put new wine into old wineskins. That was like
Mm.
the
Woo.
messaging, right? Because it was an identity
Shift.
shifting that needed to happen,
Yeah.
a huge one that needed to happen. Um, and so a lot of that was what I was like wrestling with, and working through. And now, let me tell you, my faith, my spirit leads when I am doing this work that I do. I say
Wow.
that because I have to listen to what people are saying and hear what they're
Mm-hmm.
not saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Read
And
between the lines.
I hear that in my heart. I hear it here,
Yes.
you know? I hear it
Wow.
here. And because I have grown, my faith, my spirit is just more sensitive. And so there are things that
Mm.
I receive and that I get and that I understand and
Yeah.
see from a different perspective that I just never would before. And it's so heightened that I I was talking with someone the other day about like how, you know, we all have those moments where you're thinking of someone and then
Mm-hmm.
like they send you
Mm-hmm.
a message, right?
Yes.
I have that like times 100, where
Wow.
I'm thinking of someone and I write them an email because I'm like, or a text, I'm thinking of you. And 2 minutes later, or 2 seconds later, I get an email and they're like, I was in the middle of typing an email to you when you wrote to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just what is that? Like multiple times a day, multiple times. It's just like, and so what I have learned now is to listen. I think I've learned now to trust and listen to, trust your gut, as they say. Because
Yes.
I've also done a lot of work outside of, from the faith perspective, but just like practical mind body connection, also
Mm.
learning how our bodies communicate, and how the reason why they say listen to your gut is because there's like a whole system in your gut that communicates.
Yes.
This, you're a doctor, right? Like
Yes.
there's a whole system that communicates, right? Like it's like another brain, right? And
Yes.
so really understanding that the answers are within. The
Yeah.
answers are within, and they come to us, and just embracing that and acknowledging that as I am, I have the answers within me for a number of reasons, because my body
Yeah.
communicates, because the spirit lives in me, right? But like so
Yes.
many reasons. And so finally embracing that and understanding it. And I'm still on that journey. I haven't
Yeah.
arrived. I'm still on that journey, but
Right.
I
I
am at
don't
this
think we
place
ever
now.
truly arrive.
No, we don't.
Mm-mm.
We don't. But I have such a better understanding and awareness now and can see things a lot differently
Yeah.
than even, 2 years ago, 5 years ago.
Wow.
You know, so
So what does
I could
your
talk
own
about that for
personal
hours.
what does your own personal practice look like then? Because, for me, I feel like when I'm truly in tune with God and the Holy Spirit, and I'm spending that time at the feet of Jesus, like you're saying, like my spirit is so in tune and I'm so heightened with the senses, and I'll make these decisions that people are like, wait, how did you even think to do that when everything was not pointing in that direction? Because as a physician, you're taking care of patients every day, and patients' lives are in your hands. And so it's like, for me, I'm just a mere mortal. So I'm like, I know the patients trust me. And so I'm putting my patients' lives in your hands because you are the creator of life. And so show me the things that as a human I might not be able to see. So, how does that practice look like for you?
It's very similar. Very similar. It's very similar. I'm serious because when
Yeah.
someone comes to you as a coach, what are they seeking? They're seeking guidance for their career.
Yes.
What are they really seeking? Direction for their life.
Yes. Yes.
So it's when I'm hearing you say that, I'm like, yep, yep.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
and I tell people, I'm like, listen, you are the expert in you.
Hmm.
I'm here as the expert in coaching, but together we partner and we do this work, right?
Yes.
And it really is a partnership. And I think for me as an individual, I partner with God, right,
Yeah.
in the work that I do and just seek help and discernment and wisdom because I
Yes.
don't know everything, you
Yes.
know. I can't know everything. And so it looks very, very similar. And I call myself a personal trainer for the heart, mind, and soul, even though I'm an executive coach and we're talking about your
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
I'm a personal trainer for heart, mind, and soul because I'm working
Oh,
on those things.
put them together
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
harmony.
Yeah. I'm working on those
Yeah.
things with you. Even as you're talking about your career. Well, what we're talking about was where's the alignment?
Yes.
Right? Where will you be most fulfilled? Those are heart, mind, and soul matters, right? So that's what I do. I don't actively like in my practice like I don't pray with clients or do anything like
Yeah.
that, right? Because I have people who are not people of faith and all that and that's completely cool with me. Um, but what I do is take a lot of what I know
Mm-hmm.
from my faith
Mm-hmm.
and see how that applies, right, in practical terms, you know? Even this concept of rest,
Yeah.
that's a concept that, exists in many different faiths, right? This concept of you need
Yes.
to rest.
Absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
from a practical perspective, busy professionals as they're, trying to do this and this and that, like rest, mindfulness, that's also a thing, right? And so
Right.
there are synergies even if it's not there's a distinction and you're not talking about it from a faith perspective. You're talking about it
Yeah.
from a practical perspective, right? That's what I have found.
What, in terms of just when it comes to your own life integration, what kind of mind shifts, changes have you had to do in terms of, because we are brought up a certain way and we have these, I call them strongholds, because it's like you really have to work hard to go past those things. What work have you had to do on yourself internally to get
Hmm.
past those things?
That's a big one. But I think most simply stated, I went from practicing law
Hmm.
to now being a coach.
Yeah. And that's a big one because it's
That's
like,
huge.
yeah,
That's huge.
because
That's a
it's
huge
it's kind of
identity
like
move.
when if I were to think back to my great great grandma and say, okay, I'm a coach now, what would she
She'd be
say?
like,
You know what I
Coach,
mean? What's
Coach,
that?
what is coach? Coaching what? Coaching how do you know say?
Uri
You know?
kuite,
Right. Where
iwo
is
munhu wa
Gweta?
lawyer uri kuite.
Yeah, Gweta, lawyer, yeah, we get that.
Yeah,
So going off of the beaten path, right? Doing something non-conventional. And here, I think in the US, obviously, it's like it's not as what is that? Because there's so
right.
many people who do that. There's so many,
Exactly.
lawyer coaches, physician coaches. It's like it's a
Right.
huge thing, right?
Yes.
But still, there is this identity transformation and shift that needs to happen because being a lawyer is immediately recognizable and prestigious.
Yes.
It's
Because you've
immediately,
gone
oh, I
through
can,
all this education to
yes,
get to
yes,
where you are.
yes,
Wakuita for coaching manje.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
love
Because
it.
no, it's immediately if I say I'm a lawyer, it's immediately I can assess the value. I can
Yeah.
subscribe a value to that, right? And that's what we like to do as people, right? We want to be able to say, oh, so your value is this. This is
Yes.
who you are, right? Based on what you do,
Yeah,
and we
because
do
even
that.
when you meet people, the first
Yep,
thing people are asking each other is, what do you do?
yep. Why? Yeah. A question I don't like at all.
Like,
Have
I'm a
never liked.
mom.
Exactly. I live.
What do you
I
do? I
live.
breathe.
Right. Right. I live in an area where it's very prevalent. That whole "what do you do" is a thing,
Yeah,
because people
because
want
people
to
are trying to
quickly
always size
put
each
you.
other.
Yep. Yep. Put you in a bucket. Put you in a. Where
Yep.
exactly can I fit you in? So that was a huge one for me. Huge one. And I had little jolts of having to do that along the way in my career. When things don't go as planned and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
wait, but I thought, and then it like shakes your confidence, shakes, your understanding of your self worth. But
Yeah.
really making this transition and recognizing actually that I no longer wanted to actively practice law. Like I
Yeah.
have active licenses, but in this season, I don't want to actively practice law.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be in the industry as a coach and helping people who are doing it actively, but I knew that I didn't want to. And grappling with that, even though it was coming from myself, it wasn't an external thing. No one said,
Yeah.
stop
Yeah.
practicing. In fact, I could have very easily, after that, the gift of the layup, very easily gone somewhere else and like done something, like really made that a thing and just
Yes.
continued on this trajectory. Really could have done
Yeah.
that, right? As a lot of my peers who were impacted and have done as well.
Yeah.
But when I was like, whoa, this is deep. I
Mm.
don't want to do this, right? And grappling with that and trying to understand, okay, so what does that look like and why? And why is it so hard to
Yes.
come to terms with that? And why is it so hard to articulate that, right? And so
Yeah.
that's been a really big one. And I think at the same time, recognizing that despite everything I shared with you about my own faith journey and having
Hmm.
grown up in the church, always going to church, all these things, wow, my faith, right? My faith was not where I thought it was because
Woo.
how could I not trust? And how could I not give this part and surrender this so easily, right?
Mm. Yeah.
So I think those two are like the biggest ones. And then, quite frankly, if we're being real, if we're talking about, parenting, parenting will humble you and make you
Yeah.
realize you might be a big shot or whatever it is in the real world, but when you're a parent, that means nothing.
Not at
It
home.
means nothing because because you know nothing. And you come into it, people tell you, oh, when you have kids, you'll do this and you'll teach them this. And you really think, wow, I'm going to be imparting so much knowledge and wisdom on this being. And you realize, no, 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 you're the one who's doing the learning. You're the one
Yes.
who's going to be taught things,
And this is
you know?
uncharted territory for us, right? Because you've never been a parent, and now you're a parent, and you're learning as you go. My,
Oof, bad
the
one.
learning doesn't
Bad.
stop.
No, no. I just have to, like, I always remind myself, like, parenting will humble you, man. Like, woof, you know?
It's it's so interesting that you touch on that self-worth because I
Yeah.
feel like at the end of the day, that self-identity and knowing who we are, especially for us faith-based people, knowing who we are in Christ, and then understanding our self-worth, that it doesn't come from external validation, it doesn't come from all this, is truly the core of it. It's at the core of the decisions we make in life. And also, I feel like somebody is going to be freed because a lot of times we feel like because I have worked so hard to get to this point, now how do I pivot and do something else that might not be directly related? Even though for you, your coaching is coaching other lawyers, but for somebody who is completely shifting to something different, because for some reason we feel like when you're changing, you are failing because you're
Yeah.
supposed to just stay in that same
Yeah.
lane. Like you
Yeah.
can't change lanes.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
you can change lanes. You can switch things
Yeah.
up. And
Right.
it's what
Right.
you said about seasons, because in
Yeah.
this season, you are coaching and you're not practicing law at that season as you were doing in your other seasons. It doesn't mean that 10 years from now, you might not decide to switch, and that's okay too.
Exactly. 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 Yeah.
Ah,
I think we're so attached, right? We're so attached to these things, and that's what it's about. It's like these attachments that we form to the
yes.
title, to whatever it is, right? And not allowing ourselves freedom, really. That's
Yeah.
what it is. It's freedom. You
Freedom.
get to decide what you want to do and how you want to show up in this season, and you get to in the future make another choice, whether it's the same
Yes.
thing or a different thing, right? You get to do that. And I think we're all conditioned, right,
Mhm.
to operate that way, kind of, right? And I really hope that more of us recognize that we get to decide. And another thing I want to say too is often what we don't realize is even when it's unconnected or disconnected, I've found from the work I've done, my own journey, but also working with people, is nothing is wasted.
Nothing, nothing, nothing ever.
Like the skills that I know people who have gone from law to art, like an
Yeah.
artist, painting. What is the connection
Wow.
there?
Right.
You can say what is it, how are those things connected, right? But there's skills and there's things that you get. There's mindsets. There's all of these things
Yes.
that you developed along the way that will help you, right? In some way. And I think it's just the allowing yourself to be open to exploring what is the connection. And listen, if there's truly no connection, that's also cool. That's fine.
Yeah.
We're not saying like there needs to be a connection, but nothing is wasted. The time that you spent
Nothing.
doing X was for a reason in that season for, and
And
so
yes.
that's how I see it now.
Well, let's shift gears and let's go on a lighter note. Who are two women, dead or alive, that you would want to have dinner with and why? And then after that, I want you to tell me two women in the Bible. So two non-biblical and two in the Bible.
How is that a lighter note? Oh my gosh. That's deep. Who do I want to have dinner with, you said?
Yep. And just learn from. And just like if you were to be given 1 hour with
Yeah.
somebody, two
Yeah.
women that you would just take that
Okay.
1 hour so you can learn from.
Ooh, okay, let's see.
Pretty
I
hard.
think I would like to talk with, um, and I might not necessarily have a name, but this is the type of woman that I want to talk
Yeah.
with. A woman who has had many career pivots and
Mm.
done many different things in life, and at each stage had joy and success that that traditional versions of success, and I would
Yeah.
love to pick that person's brain to understand how they thought of themselves in each of these different seasons, and how they grappled with what we're talking about, the identity. I'd love to hear the
Yes.
process around that. And what was the negative self-talk?
Mm.
Because inevitably it's there. So I'd love to hear
Yes.
what that looked like. Um, that's important to me because, that's who I want to be. I want to be
Yes.
someone who fully utilizes the gifts that I was given
Amen.
and fully lives the life that I was put on this earth to live. That's really what I want. And that's why I've done all the things that may be disconnected to some people, right? Because I'm like, oh, this is the expression of it. This is the expression of it in
Yeah.
this season. And I also want to say here, people think that your purpose is one thing.
Oh
It also
no.
changes in seasons, right? As well. And
Yes.
so there might be
Yes.
an overarching like theme, but like
Yes.
it also flexes and changes and is different. So
Absolutely.
just want to say that. And then I think a second woman I would want to meet with. Oh man. Can I do yet to be born?
Sure. That's a new one. I love it.
A woman yet to be born
Uh-huh.
in the future, like my great, 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 great
Yes.
granddaughter, is someone that I would love to hear, like her perspective on the legacy that we are actively creating now.
Woo. Wow. That's deep. That is deep. And I feel like if we lived our lives with thinking that every now and then, we would not be held back by fear of
Mm,
rejection, fear of what people are going to say, all these fears that we let stunt our growth. Because you're thinking, this is not about this person and that person or that. This is about our legacy and how
mm,
our future great, great grandchildren are going to look back and say, because nobody wants our future grandchildren to look back and say, oh, my great great grandma could have done this, but she
mm,
didn't do it because she was afraid of what people would say.
mm,
She was afraid that she would be rejected. She
mm,
was afraid that she'd fail. I mean,
mm.
that is so powerful. I never ever thought of it that way. Wow.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Um, two people in the Bible.
In the Bible.
First one has to be Eve, my girl Eve.
What bone do you have to pick with Eve?
I don't know about to pick with Eve. I have a lot of compassion for Eve. Listen,
Yeah.
who
As
would
the
have made a
first.
different choice? Who would have made a different choice, And
We know how
and not
curious
been
we are.
and been tempted. But I gotta talk with Eve and just say, listen, I just want you to know.
I
These
see
labor
you, Mama Eve.
pains, the labor pains that are described. So yeah, I think that would be an interesting conversation. So going all the way back to the first, right? And what that was
Yes.
like. How does it feel to be the first, right? And all that.
Yes.
So I think that would be an interesting conversation. And then after that, I think Esther,
Okay.
Esther, I think. I went to a Jewish school, like I said, so there was a lot of learning around the Old Testament, obviously, and like Esther has always struck me as someone who, like, what courage, right? What boldness.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about that, and hear more. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Wow. Lightning round. What is your favorite color?
I let my daughter dictate that, so she tells me my favorite color. It changes. I
It
think right now
changes
my
every day.
favorite colors are not every day. It seems to
Okay.
be seasonal. I think right now my
Okay.
favorite colors are orange and purple.
I like that. I like that. Favorite food, the one food that you could eat every day.
Ooh. Hmm. I really, 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 really love Thai food. Like,
Really?
and it's funny you asked me that because like there's a restaurant I went to, a Thai restaurant a couple weeks ago, and I was just like
Yeah.
thinking of it today, and I was like, I gotta go back. I just have to go back. It's so good. I love Thai food. I love Thai
Oh my
street
gosh.
food. I love Thai food. Generally, I love ethnic food. Like, I love trying new
Yeah.
food. I'm such a foodie. So I think it would be like Thai food or ethnic food, right? Something that, like, I can eat seafood, I can eat chicken. Those are the two things I eat.
Yeah.
And there's like some level of spice, but it's not spicy. There's a different mix of food. There's like curries. There's if you don't want curries, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, making me hungry now. And final question. Favorite book you've read other than the Bible?
I would say recently.
Mhm.
Ooh, it's a tie. It's a tie. Okay, let me tell you. There's this book I
Okay.
was
Tell
gifted.
me, I'll take the two.
Okay, thank you. I was gifted this book
Mhm.
called Anonymous. It's about Jesus and
Oh,
how he was
really?
anonymous, right? For a long period while he was
Yes.
being
Waiting for
prepared,
that
right?
time for
Right.
ministry.
And
Yes.
exactly. And it talks also about like how our kids, right? Like as they're as we're launching them into adulthood, they're pretty much anonymous, right? And then, oh wow,
Yeah.
you suddenly hear of this person, unless we're talking about like, these phenomenal people like who we started learning about when they were like 10, Coco
Yeah.
Gauff, for example.
Yeah.
Most people are in obscurity until,
Yes.
right? And then it also talks about how you go through that, like for me it was a book that spoke to me when I was going through like my this transition that I was going through, right? Where it was
Wow.
like really powerful book, really powerful.
Wow.
Second
Okay, I'm
book,
looking forward to it.
yes, the second one is Set Boundaries, Find Peace.
Who is
It's
that
written
by?
by it's written by Nedra Tawwab, I think is how you say her name.
Okay.
She's a black woman, and I I know she's a therapist, but I don't know what her
What
qualifications are. Like,
kind?
is she a psycho? I have no idea. But anyway, psychotherapist or what? Psychologist? I don't know. But like, it is so powerful, and I go back to that book often, and it just
Really?
teaches you a framework for boundaries, the different types of boundaries, why it's difficult, and what you're really dealing with when we're dealing with
Yeah.
boundaries. And that's such a good one and a powerful one for me as I've been on my own boundaries journey, especially as someone who comes from a people pleasing culture like you do.
Yes.
Our
Yes.
culture is very
Yes.
people pleasing. And then
Yes.
you realize, right, like certain things that you need to kind of shed, right, unlearn,
Yes. Yes.
especially as you grow up, especially
That's
as you're
been
raising
hard.
kids,
That's
especially
been
as you're
so
in a
hard.
career, right?
Yes. Yes.
A
Yes.
demanding career that demands a lot of you, and you're like, oh, you don't realize that those elements exist, and you wouldn't even have had language for it, right? So this
Right.
book is just great for a framework for that. So
Wow.
yeah, those two.
I love it. Do you have your book right there with you? Yes.
That's my baby.
My first book of Shona and Debele words. I love that. Yes, I actually got it for my son. So
Aw, thank
it's
you.
good. And I'll put a link. Is it Amazon that's best or
Yeah,
your
Amazon is
website?
best because I took
Okay.
down the website because
Okay.
it's I don't have copies of it left. So whatever's on Amazon, people can get that. I don't get anything from Amazon. I'm not That's not my personal link, but let people get it from there.
Okay.
Thank you
I'll
so
put it
much.
on
You've always
Amazon.
been a great supporter there,
Oh,
and
I
just
love that.
generally.
I just love it. I just love watching you grow and do all these big things. And thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. I really
Hmm.
appreciate it. It's so wonderful. And it's
Um,
just such a nice time to just sit and talk. And ah, thank you.
thank you
I
so
will.
much. Thank you for having me. And we need to just talk outside of the podcast. We can't just meet on podcasts. On your podcast, okay? So we need to schedule time because I feel the same way about you. Watching you grow, right? And knowing your story and hearing your story and listening to you do this podcast and interviewing guests and the things that you're talking about. It's really beautiful what you're doing. Thank you for doing it. Thank you for having me on. And God bless you.
Thank you.